Hello, Canyon City. This is Ashley Smith, the mayor, and I have with me today our Canyon City Council. We're really happy to see everybody in person. It's always a pleasure during COVID, to actually have a meeting, social distance, but face to face. Today's meeting for July 6, 2020, we have a number of things to talk about, but before I move on to that, I just want to hope that everybody had a great, happy 4th of July and a safe one. And would also like to publicly thank the City of Canyon City and their staff, and Brandy Fowler and Christine Nunez, who put together the reverse car parade, and for all of their hard work for making that possible for our residents to enjoy. Also want to thank Florence, because they also put on a great show every year. And I noticed on Facebook someone said, oh, Florence outdid Canyon yet again. And I'm like, it's not a competition. I really celebrate with Florence as well. And I could watch their fireworks from my own home even. It was amazing. And I appreciate all of their hard work as well. With that, I'd like to call to order our meeting for today and ask for a roll call.
Councilmember Dennehy, absent. Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Jaquez.
Here.
Councilmember Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. And we'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Cindy, did we have any citizens that requested to speak to council at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay. How about any council member announcements? Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
I don't have an announcement, but I just wanted to say that I got to participate in the reverse parade over at Centennial Park. I thought it was a great hit. I thought that people really enjoyed it. I thought the people that were there exhibiting were having a pretty good time, and that the people that drove by in their cars, it was truly amazing. By my calculation, it could have been as many as 800 cars went through, and so I thought that was a pretty good deal.
Thank you. Any other announcements from council? I do want to point out, I have here a letter that's an example of probably a good 50 or more letters that were written and signed by myself and all of City Council. They are recognizing people throughout the community that had really stepped up during the COVID-19 crisis. It had anything to do from people who made thousands of masks for our community members. This particular letter, actually, I had sought out on social media for other recommendations for people who they felt like really, stepped up to the plate and really shined during the coronavirus to help our community. And this one happens to be the Reed Agency, and that's Councilmember Mandy Reed. And you're one of the last ones I have to give out, and I just want to recognize as symbolically of those 50 of how many people really did step up and do amazing, amazing things, so many heroic acts to really pull together for individuals and also for our small businesses. So I'd like to give you your letter, and symbolic of all the other people that I wish we could fill this room with today. Thank you. And that gratitude and thanks is not only from me, but our staff and all of City Council, of course. And we do have our meeting on Wednesday with Planning Commission, and we're going to be talking about the comprehensive plan that's coming up. With that, I would like to...
One
yeah,
point on that,
please.
Madam Mayor, I just want to make sure that as it's my understanding, Mr. Stevens, that meeting is not an in-person public meeting, but another hybrid meeting through Zoom.
That is correct. It will be another hybrid meeting. We have permission to have up to 25 in the room. That will accommodate City Council and the Planning Commission, as well as staff and the consultants. But the rest of it will be conducted via a Zoom teleconference call. If people have questions or would like to speak, please let us know. But there will be opportunities throughout.
Thank you.
We'll now would like to get a report on the consent agenda.
Madam Mayor and members of council, Item 7A is to approve the minutes for June 15th, the regular city council meeting, and also a special city council meeting the same dates. 7B awards bids 2720 for cationic polymer to Nelco Company in an amount not to exceed $19,576.45. 7C reappoints Gary Clark and Dustin Moss to the Planning Commission. 7D is a Water Department Administrative Job Description Update. 7E authorizes the city administrator's signature on the cartograph upgrade and renewal. 7F authorizes the mayor to sign by acclamation members to the GIS Authority Board and the Transportation Board. 7G ratifies the mayor's signature on the CARES Act funding collaboration agreement with the Fremont County. 7H is to receive and file a list of bills.
Are there any additions or corrections? Or questions? Councilmember Meisner.
I just have a question. On the disbursements that we just received, I don't ever recall seeing this, but it makes sense. The lease for City Hall, has that always been on there?
That would be, I don't know if that has always been on there or not, but it should have been. It's part of the COPs.
Right, I understand what it
Yep.
is, but I just don't ever recall seeing that.
Yeah, and we have Tammy Nordyke on, but, you know, again, trying to be more transparent, showing all the transactions that go through the city. We've been making an effort to make sure all of those types of transactions are showing.
Brian, can you run out to the doors and let Tim Dennehy in? Thank you.
Cindy's got it.
Will our new door software that's on here take care of that problem?
We have new door software?
I see it on here for 5, somewhere. I see something mentioning about door software. Is that for the doors?
Yeah, I would have to look and see what additional software that would be. Is that the Salamander system?
I thought it was Amazon, but I don't see it now, but somewhere in there I saw some door,
There's door controller hardware
right,
and.
hardware, sorry.
Yeah, that's the 4th or 5th item down there. I would have to confirm
Probably won't fix our
exactly what
problem
that
if
is.
if it's a hardware problem. Yeah.
I would like to make note that Councilmember Tim Dennehy is here now for a role. Welcome, we're glad to see you.
Thank you.
Council or Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Stevens, I got a question on our cartograph upgrade and renewal. We, if I remember correctly, and if I go off the path here, correct me, but we originally authorized the purchase of cartograph, and then it was renewed one time, and now this is the second renewal, is that correct?
Yeah, this would be a renewal as well as an expansion in services for the water department up at the treatment plant so we can track additional assets.
Okay, so we can track additional assets. Okay. I would ask that you provide us some details on what Cartograph is doing for the city. I remember, I was here for the original presentation and all the different things, but I'd like to know how the city is using it and you know, maybe some examples of what kind of reports we're getting out of it. Because that's the idea. It's a management system, if I understand correctly.
It is, and I think it was about 6 months ago or so when Adam did the engineering update at a general government meeting. There was an update and a show and tell of what Cartograph does. So, you know, some of the things that it does from a street standpoint, you know, tracking, you know, potholes, time spent, materials spent on each and every project that comes through the system. So I can get you some additional reporting or examples of reporting.
That would be great. Thank you.
Councilmember Meisner?
one of the things that that it's supposed to provide us is detailed expenses relative to utility work that's being done to support stormwater, right?
That's correct as well.
It's supposed to give
Yes.
us very detailed information in
Yes.
terms of,
All work orders that are going through streets, the water department, and stormwater.
my actual question is in regards to the position description for item D. Looks like the information in the packet is two different positions.
That is correct. There's a supervisor position as well as a clerk position.
So
Hello, Ryan.
explain that.
Bob, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, if I could just kind of give an overview there of the request. It is for the approval of the upgrade to 2 job descriptions. One of those current positions is a senior admin clerk. It's a position that we've had out there at the water department for 30-some years. This is basically, many of you knew Dodie, and of course Dodie has retired. And so therefore presented us with an opportunity to maybe look at doing some different things, especially in regards to Cartograph, because of the water department has a lot of assets, they have a lot of inventory, and with the customer service calls, and need some additional admin staff to help me track all of that. But as well, the second job description is the customer service representative that I once had out there, briefly albeit, but it was a succession plan that previous administrator Doug Dotson had allowed me to move forward on in getting some more help out there with the customer service phase for the bulk water station, as well as having an adequate backup. As you know, we're essential services, and therefore, we really need the redundancy, the backup there, which we currently don't have. And so the monies were approved in the budget, not albeit at the amounts that what the job description show the pay range at, but I do have some vacancy savings as a result of in the process of replacing backfilling Dodie's former position, as well as looking forward to hiring the customer service rep, or the water admin one, I believe, or water admin clerk one, I believe is what we're calling it. These 2 positions kind of mirror the 2 positions we have down at City Hall with utility billing.
So are we essentially adding a position?
The positions have already been approved in this year's budget. When we put the budget together last year, council approved the senior admin clerk as well as the customer service rep position. Again, a slight adjustment to the pay ranges if council would consider the recommendation before them tonight, but they were planned for and budgeted when we went through the budget process in 2019.
So to answer your question, Councilman Meisner, yes, it'd be an additional headcount that we had not hired previously, but we did budget for it, and that was approved as part of the budget process.
Well, I guess I can accept the position change. I mean, if that's what Bob thinks makes sense relative to his department. But I have a concern. This is the second and third requests that we now have through the city to make increases in city positions when there's tons of people out there that are struggling, and we're coming forth with requests to increase salaries. So,
I wouldn't necessarily say that there's going to be an increase in salaries per se. They're in the ranges. But in order to get this work done, talked about it with HR as well as finance and with the duties and tasks that I had outlined that helped create the job descriptions. We felt that needed 4 individuals to not only perform the work, but again, to have most of everything, the redundancy, the backup. I've been working a long time without it out there at the water distribution shop, and it's quite challenging in trying to meet the customer service needs when I just have the one person.
You know, another thing I would add there is that in the past, there's been a disparity between that position up at the water treatment plant and what they're paid versus a very similar position that's working here at City Hall. And we're trying to bring those positions into alignment because they have very similar tasks. They're doing very similar type of work. And you know, we want to make sure that we're paying accordingly and fairly.
well, I don't have a problem with that. I think your timing, as I said last time, is grossly inappropriate. At a time when we're trying to cut the budget, we still don't know what the sales tax situation is going to be through the summer, and here we are asking for increases in salaries. And lots of businesses are reducing salaries for employees. It just doesn't seem appropriate to me.
And I understand that, but again, the water department is a separate enterprise fund. It is not funded from sales tax. And you know, the funding and the budget cuts that we have done in the past, you know, we have a contingency plan for the water department, but those revenues are not affected the same way the sales tax revenue or the parks budget's affected with the Rural Gorge. And those funds cannot intermingle either because of the enterprise fund status.
I recognize that, but the people that are having difficulty paying their water bills are not going to have the same perspective of that you do.
And I appreciate that, Councilman Meisner, but we also have 2 open positions where people who might be out of work can come to work.
Ryan Stevens, I had a mayor's meeting last week, and some of them were talking about how there is a considerable increase for some of our cities in Fremont County that have delinquency on their water bills. Do you know how we're standing as for our water bills and our citizens?
We can get you a report on where that is. We've seen a slight uptick in delinquencies, but that is something that we are monitoring. I don't know the numbers right off the top of my head.
Any other questions or comments or discussion on the consent agenda? I'd like to entertain a motion, or Councilmember Smith. Oh, well, would you like to make a motion? Oh, well, you pushed it? Oh, well then, we'll take it to Councilmember Reed then. I think we might have a little mix-up on names.
I just want to say that I echo Councilmember Meisner's sentiments during this time. I think that most of the discussions that are happening right now, especially with concerned citizens, are asking questions about, you know, the budget, how it's impacting the city. Of course, we want to get good candidates, so we're sharing this information transparently as we should. Oh, sorry, Cindy, I'm in your way. And so we're sharing this information as we should. But it does appear that in the middle of crisis and turmoil, concern for budget, it appears to be increasing positions, which I think negatively, it puts a negative view on the city as far as our fiduciary responsibility to our citizens when they're struggling. And so I do want to just take that into account. I absolutely know that Bob knows what he needs to be able to run his department, and so I have no objections to that piece. I just think that as we are evaluating positions coming up, we need to make sure that we're also giving a lot of explanation as to where funds are coming from, and maybe an educational piece will help. But I would say that I would be cautious going forward in adding things to our budget in a time where I feel like being fiscally responsible would be to remove things.
And I certainly appreciate that, but in this time of COVID, and even if it wasn't the time of COVID, having the retirement of an employee where she was the only person that was doing that job, we have now split our resources even further, where we only have one person working up in the water billing department right now because the other person is over at the water treatment plants, or not the treatment plant, but the bulk filling station, the water distribution. So again, we're still trying to provide those customer service to our customers and to the city. And as Bob mentioned, that these are the steps that we need to take to make sure that we're fulfilling those levels of service that people are expecting from us.
And I understand that. I just think that I know other positions and things will come up in time too. Just explaining where funds are coming from, for example, if it's something being funded by CARES Act or things like that.
Sure.
Just making sure that we're sharing that openly so that everyone knows that we are being very, very responsible and penny pinchers when we need to be.
Any other comments or discussion from council? I think part of this conversation, Ryan, it might be good to talk about where we are fiscally right now. I mean, granted, we need to look at the long term because we don't know how long, the downturn of the economy will be, and with our tourist season being down. But it is very interesting. It's kind of the phenomena that for Canyon City right now, our sales tax revenue in the past few months has actually been up. At that same mayor's meeting, I would even say that Florence's and Fremont counties as a whole is up quite a bit more than ours. They contribute part of that because they started collecting they have sales tax collected by the state, which luckily we started doing just starting this month. And that really made a really big difference for them. But can you kind of expound on that just so that we know where we are collectively?
Yeah, sales tax revenue is up for the year, and we're continuing to see that increase. And I will provide an updated sheet to council, and of course we'll post that publicly as well. We are expecting to see a decrease in Royal Gorge revenue funds because of COVID and their shutdown, and the reduced number of people that feel comfortable traveling right now. We generally see about $2.7 million come from the bridge lease payment. We're expecting to see that drop by about 30% this year. So we are seeing a lot of savings, as Bob mentioned, in salary savings, and we've cut a lot of capital projects out of the budget as well. But we're continuing to monitor that on a daily, weekly, hourly basis.
Thank you. All right, I will now entertain a motion. Councilmember Smith, if you'd like.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move to approve the consent agenda for the regular city council meeting, July 6, 2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Then I'd like to call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Nay. Nay.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll now have the administrator's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have, I have the written administrator's report here. There are a few things I want to add and talk about. We are working on the splash pad. We have hired some splash pad attendants. We're hoping to have it open later this week. We're waiting on some fencing to arrive, some barriers that was supposed to arrive by 3 p.m. today. We're hoping to be able to open the splash pad on Thursday. There will be a press release that will be going out, and there will be a reservation system. In order to use the splash pad, you will have to make reservations. We're also working through the final details with the health department to make sure that we have addressed all of their concerns as well. So that's the big thing this week. You should see a press release that will go out either tomorrow or Wednesday. We've also kicked off the police chief recruitments. We are working with a recruitment company that will be conducting that recruitment on our behalf. Had a meeting with them today, kicking that off, and they're going to be putting together the recruitment package, and then we will put that job advertisement out for approximately 30 days. We're hoping to start doing those interviews in September to early October. As the mayor mentioned earlier, we have the comp plan update kickoff on Wednesday at 5 p.m.
This is a good opportunity for council to ask any questions. Ryan, too, if you have any concerns or questions about things. Go ahead, Councilmember Meisner.
In regards to the splash pad, you mentioned there's a reservation system. How does that kind of work? I mean, are people limited to a particular amount of time per reservation?
They will be. They'll be limited to 45 minutes. We can have up to 35 people on the splash pad at any given time. So we felt the best way to do it was to do this reservation system. People will be able to book those reservations for about 2 weeks, 2 weeks out at a time. So we're going to try it and see how it goes, and we'll continue to adjust and adapt as we go.
And I realize this isn't your area of responsibility, but what's the situation with the pool?
The pool will not be opening this year because of COVID. We're not going to be able to, they typically lose money on that venture every year anyway. They couldn't see any way where, especially given the limited number of capacity, that they could operate this year. And they were looking at their fiduciary responsibility of opening that pool. I know that they are planning on, it sounds like they're planning on opening next year, dependent on, how, their boiler and all the long-term maintenance that they have to take care of.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Yeah, I'd like to point out my industrial experiences included shutting down and starting up plants multiple times throughout my career. I mean, things that run 24 hours a day, and if you have especially an older piece of equipment that you have to shut down for an extended period, when you go to start up, it is really iffy. And I think people should be prepared for no pool next year also.
I know they did have some major replacements that needed to be done. I don't know what they had talked about doing it, but I don't know if that actually happened because of what happened to COVID.
Right.
I will say that the Florence pool is open, and they're also on a reservation system if you can get in. But I'm really grateful that they have that available for the kids. And it's really awesome if you do get in because it is not crazy crowded. You actually are able to really enjoy the pool. And I think maybe that could be a similar situation for the splash pad, that instead of for those little kiddos having to fight for their little space with over 100, 150 kids all there at the same time, that they kind of get their own little session that is a little bit more reasonable to join and play at that splash pad for this year. Councilmember Reed?
I just had a question about the splash pad. For the number, is that going to be of kiddos and then parents kind of staying on the outside portions of it, or have we figured that part out yet?
So what we've been told is 35 on the splash pad. So
Keep the toes off the splash pad, let the kiddos have some fun. And
yeah,
then
so if parents, if you have older kids, and the parents don't need to go into the splash pad area, only book the reservation for the kids that are going to be using the splash pad. If you have younger kids that need assistance, you should book a reservation for yourself so that you're out there helping the little ones.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions? Councilmember Smith.
Just since we're streaming live on Facebook, where do they go to book the registration?
So they will go to canyoncity.org, the city website, and we will have a banner across the top that will take them to the reservation system.
And did you mention that during those times, there's some cleaning time in between too?
Yeah, so, what we've done is we've broken it down into hour blocks, so that each reservation will get 45 minutes. There will be a 15-minute transition period where we're getting people off the splash pad. The splash pad attendants will do any cleaning that they need to do, and then we'll have time to check in the next group of people.
Councilmember Dennehy?
So how many Parks employees is this going to be that are just working on the splash pad now?
We've actually hired splash pad attendants that were not in the budget. We will be using CARES Act funding for those positions because they were unbudgeted.
Okay.
Ryan, can you explain a little bit about that CARES Act funding?
Yeah, so the CARES Act funding was one of the rounds of funding that came down from the federal government. It was an allocation that was given to the states. The state broke it out amongst the counties. Each of the counties had to work out a split with each of their municipalities. So the city of Canyon City, our CARES Act funding is in the neighborhood of $1.4 million. I think it's 1.37. And those funds can be used for unbudgeted, unanticipated expenses due to COVID. So examples would be the Zoom software that we're using for tonight's meeting. If COVID had not existed, we would not have spent money on Zoom. Because COVID exists, we have to have splash pad attendants to make sure we don't have any overcrowding at the splash pads, so we're using funding for that. The sanitation, the hand sanitizer, all of the different measures that we need to take to make sure that our first responders and city employees are safe and the public is safe. Those are all things that we didn't budget or expect to use money towards in this fiscal year, and those are all eligible expenses for the COVID or for the CARES Act funding. So there are many different things that are eligible. They're just like everything else, there's a lot of different guidance that comes out almost on a daily basis. So we're interpreting a lot of that right now on how to use that. We're continuing to work on that, and we'll be supplementing some of the budget, and especially the things that were not expected expenses for these times.
Councilmember Meisner?
The total CARES funding for the county was 5-something, wasn't it?
It was rough. Yeah, it was right in that range.
So do you know what the calculation was or the methodology they used to determine what our percentage of that?
55% of the total county allocation went to the county, and then the remaining 45% of that balance was broken up amongst the municipalities based on population.
Is the 55% coming from the state?
All of it.
Yeah, so
No, I'm talking about the percentage. Who determined the 55?
That was a common number that was being used across the states. It did not come from the state, no.
Just doesn't seem appropriate.
Yeah, I think, you saw a lot of counties across the state. They are the ones that are manning and staffing the public health offices, and there's a lot more expenses that are going in there with the contact tracing and some of those other things that are a little bit more cost intensive for counties. And I would imagine that's where that 55% came from, because
They had to hire an epidemiologist to test.
They're seeing a lot more expenses because they have the health department that they have to run.
As well as in-person voting and everything that went into that, correct?
Yeah, and I think even with the money we're allocated, because they have so many restrictions on how it can be spent, we'll see if we can even get up to our allocation. So I think we feel comfortable with what we have.
Just doesn't seem appropriate.
Yeah, and I think even with the money we're allocated, because they have so many restrictions on how it can be spent, we'll see if we can even get up to our allocation. So I think we feel comfortable with what we have. 'Cause I think even with the money we're allocated, because they have so many restrictions on how it can be spent, we'll see if we can even get up to our allocation. Councilmember Reed?
Ryan, the money from the CARES Act, that was the money that we almost didn't get, right? That the commissioners had to kind of go
Yeah,
pretty much to
both-
Denver and pull
yeah.
out of their fingers.
Colorado Counties, Inc., which is the county the Association of Counties and the Colorado Municipal League, along with many others, writing letters and asking for those distributions. Absolutely, there was a
Well, I just want to say thanks
there's a
to
lot of work that
everybody
went out
that
there.
went into doing that, because I know personally I was concerned that we weren't going to get it. It seems that our area is often forgotten, so to anybody who helped with that, thank you so much, because hopefully this will make it to where we can keep swimming.
Okay, are there any other questions for Ryan Stevens while we've got him at, at our beck and call? If that's the case, then we'll move on to item number 8, and that's the new liquor license hotel and restaurant licensing for Happy Endings Caboose. I would like to open the public hearing and invite the acting city administrator for the staff report.
8 or 9?
Actually,
Number 9.
Yep, Cindy will be doing the staff report.
Happy Endings Caboose had all of their information, and they started well before all of COVID started, and so this has been a very long process for us because they had to wait a long time to get all of their signatures. So they started, I want to say, in March, and diligently got everything in and then waited until they could get their signatures. They had the company that they used to come in to get signatures for them, and they did that very quickly so that we could get them into public hearing as quickly as possible, but they've done everything they needed to do.
I'd like to ask the council for the questions that they'd like to have for the liquor hearing.
And you're talking to Rich Millard, and he is on tonight.
Oh, so Rich, before we ask our questions, can you talk to us about Happy Endings and where you guys are at? I know we've had a lot of people that love the opportunity to be on the riverfront, and this is your chance to let it shine.
Sure thing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So yeah, as most of you know, we opened Happy Endings October of last year, and we just kind of wanted to do it in phases. Obviously, our goal was to just create a really cool spot down there by the river, along the river trail, also along the corridor, the pedestrian corridor. That's kind of what we consider the main corridor from the downtown historic district over to the river. And I know there's, great future plans to develop that even further. So we do kind of consider that a really important crossroads, and we just wanted to do something really cool there when we brought in the historic old wooden caboose and started serving the coffee, and we have the crepes and paninis, and so this was just kind of a natural progression, just to give people a little bit of extra, just something on the side, come have a sandwich and a beer or a glass of wine. We want to, stay open a little bit later in the evenings and maybe even do some special dinners. We've got our full kitchen that we prep food for our train just right across the parking lot. So it's really easy for us to prep and par cook a lot of items and serve some really cool things over there. So we figured that having a license to serve alcohol would be a perfect complement to the things that we're trying to do and just create a really unique outdoor atmosphere. As anybody that's been down there knows, the caboose itself is relatively small, but we've invested quite a bit of time, money, and effort into creating a really special patio area that we want to continue to make even better over the coming months and years, but got to start somewhere. So we just invested in the really beautiful wrought iron fencing that surrounds it to be able to to satisfy the conditions of serving liquor outdoors. So we're just really, really excited to have this for not only our train guests, but also for the community and just for visitors that are stopping through that aren't even riding the train.
Thank you, Rich. I'll open up to council now. Councilmember Smith.
Where exactly is the area that the liquor license covers? Is it a pretty standard area? It's not going all the way down to the river, correct?
Oh, no. It basically covers our property. That was also part of the property that we purchased from the city last year. So as you're walking down the sidewalk from from 3rd Street and around, it becomes kind of merges into what the little is left of Water Street there. Basically, we've erected a fence at the boundary, so it basically follows the sidewalk along the street and then comes back into the caboose. So we have a complete enclosed area in front of the caboose now with all the appropriate gates and everything that we've been working with Kathy on to make sure that that part's all in line. So it's a very defined area that we serve the food in and hopefully then the alcohol as well.
Councilmember Reed.
How many employees do you expect to have at that location?
Well, dedicated to the caboose, it's about a dozen employees, give or take. We do also share, since we're the same company, we share with staff that works on the train that we can use, and they hop over there and work, and then they can hop back on the train. So it's really kind of a cool situation. But we've had to add, obviously some dedicated caboose staff as well. So that's about what it works out to be.
Councilmember Meisner.
Thanks, Rich. What efforts, if any, did you make to contact residents in the immediate vicinity of a proposed establishment to discuss your liquor license application?
Well, the petition was door to door and face to face with the community. So
I think his sound just went out.
You still
no,
there?
it might have cut me off. Did you hear? It was door to door and face to face with the community.
In your door to door, what kind of radius were you working with?
Within the city limits of Canyon City, in that area.
Did you have anybody opposed to it?
One person.
Where did they live? Or how close were they to your establishment?
I am unsure of that piece of information at this time.
Councilmember Meisner, I can answer that for you. They were over on the east side of the city.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for being here. I have read the application and the materials provided by our city clerk. And so my question, Cindy, is for you. Have you identified any red flags or things that the council should be concerned with in either the application or the signature gathering process or any of those matters?
No, sir. They followed everything that they needed to do. They're all ready. They've got their fences up. They're all set to go. On my part, they're good to go.
And this is for beer and wine only, is that correct?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. They did a hotel.
It's a hotel.
It's a hotel restaurant, so they can do whatever.
They can do whatever?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Jaquez.
The one question I have, and I think your establishment that you're looking at is a great advantage to the area in Canyon City, and you've done a lot of work, but I'm looking at the initial application, the front page that we have, and on there it indicates that the applicant it's through a lease agreement for the property, and then going through more of the applications, I see where it says that you purchased the entire thing, I forget I think $450,000. So the only clarification I would like is, do you actually own it or are you leasing it?
We actually do own the property.
Okay, that was the only, other than that, everything else looks okay, but I just saw those two things that contradicted each other. Thank you very much, sir.
Welcome.
Councilmember Dennehy.
This isn't so much, I've seen the work that the Royal Gorge is done down there, and I think it's fantastic what they're doing. But I think as we look at this, you know, this is something that, you know, we've all said in the future that we want to get going is some more things closer to the river. And this is just a small step, and I think that it's a great step. I think it'll do nothing but great things for the town, and what I've seen, what the railroad has done down there, they've made the whole area just even nicer. I mean, when you pull down and you see that caboose there, and I have been down recently, my family and I walked there the other day, and we saw the tables and that, and I just think they're doing a fantastic job, and I think if we can, you know, as we get going on this, this is a step toward what I think we'd all like to see done down by the river.
Councilmember Meisner?
Seeing as you're doing business as Happy Endings Caboose, but this is maybe more directed to Cindy, I assume, because this application is being presented to us, that there haven't been any incidents with the Royal Gorge Railroad relative to liquor violations.
Sir, that is not one of our liquor licenses. It is a Department of Transportation liquor license. So if they would have any infractions, I would not be made aware of it. It is a state license only. We don't have anything to do with that license.
So could I direct that question then to Rich? Have there been any liquor violations in the last 5 years with Royal Gorge Railroad?
No, sir, there have not been any violations.
Thank you.
I do have a question for Rich. Well, first of all, I agree with Councilmember Dennehy. I think Canyon City has been really eager to have dining by the river, especially right on the riverfront. Caboose is just a little bit shy of being right on the riverfront. And so my question is, what if some of your clients, you know, have their food and then they have their alcoholic beverage and they want to take that to the river? What will be done, because that would be a violation? Is there any thing in your contingency or business plan to prevent that from happening?
Yes, our employees, well, with the company in general, are intensively trained with the service of alcohol and the monitoring of alcohol service. And so we definitely will have employees, you know, out there at the tables, monitoring the area very closely. Fortunately, it is a very relatively small area. We also have invested very heavily in a camera system. So every inch of that patio is monitored with video, and it's very easy to monitor and keep track of everyone coming and going. And like as we've discussed, we have the fencing in place with the gates. So we are very confident that no one is going to be leaving with anything they shouldn't be leaving with. Hopefully they'll want to take some of our food with them, but not the alcohol.
Right, and I would like to also say that I'm excited to have more easy access to the train's menu. It's always excellent and always a class act. And what you have done with the caboose has been really incredible, and it's one of our first steps to really developing that riverfront. And I want to thank you and the Royal Gorge Railroad route for doing that.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. You know, we take great pride in our product that we offer on the train, and that was a discussion from the very beginning. Is this is just a great opportunity for us to take some of the very amazing cuisine that we feature, the locally produced food and produce and everything, and bring it to the city of Canyon City and the people that don't ride the train all the time. And so that still remains a focus of the caboose, and that area, like I mentioned, is the food service and our exquisite menu that we've kind of crafted, and just the alcohol will just be the complement to that. So we feel very, very excited to be able to take this to the next step now. And even our famous prime rib, you know, have a prime rib Friday night or something, or Saturday night, and just really just do it up, and it's going to be really cool.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that prime rib. Anything else from council? Then I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion. Councilmember Meisner.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move that we approve the new hotel and restaurant liquor license for Happy Endings Caboose.
I'll
located at 401 Water Street, Canyon City, Colorado.
I second.
And I'll second that. I think we all will.
Everybody seconds it. We'll put Council Member Reed down for that official second, but I have a feeling we'll all be down there for some prime rib shortly based on the enthusiasm. So there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Then I'll call for a roll.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you. We're now on. Yes, absolutely. Good luck. Thank you.
So much.
9B, Resolution 14, Series of 2020, concerning a plat note amendment to Dawson Ranch Phase 9, final plat. I would like to open the public hearing and invite the city administrator for the staff report.
Actually, we've got Patrick Mulready is going to be doing the staff report on this.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. We're continuing this matter, so I think we should just continue the public hearing to July 20th.
Okay, well, I'm just following my script, but I did have a question. Council got an email from a citizen wondering what this was about, and I don't actually have any information what this is about. So I would like to know, what is this resolution for the plat? Can we ask what that is?
Sure. Do you want, Ryan, would you like me to do that?
If you don't mind, Catherine, thank you.
Sure. So there is a property owner in this phase of Dawson Ranch who has submitted a building permit and does not currently have public access to their lot. The road has not been developed in that portion of that phase. And there is a plat note on there that says the road must be built before a building permit is issued. And this is to consider the removal of that plat note. We have run into some issues regarding this phase of Dawson Ranch, not related to this property owner, but related to their request, which we're trying to sort out, and that's why we're asking for the continuance.
So I have had an opportunity to hear from that property owner, and they have voiced a lot of frustrations with city staff and Hall, and just want to make sure that we really, I hope that we can find some resolution to help work through whatever those issues are, so that we can hear back from the July 20 meeting to be able to move forward as best we can. We do need to have a motion and a second to continue this hearing to July 20th, 2020. Well, first, Councilmember Brendan Smith, did you have?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Go ahead. Okay.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move, what was the date?
20th.
July
July
20th.
20th.
July 20th.
20th. I move to continue Resolution 14, Series of 2020 to the July 20th regular city council meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. I'd like to call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you. We now have the introduction and first reading of Ordinance 11, Series of 2020. This is an ordinance of the City of Canyon City amending Section 17.24.050 of the Canyon City Municipal Code, allowing an ADU at 316 South 10th Street.
And City Planner Patrick Mulready will be doing the staff report.
I would like to open the public hearing, and now we'll turn that time over to Patrick. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen so that you can see my PowerPoint. Hopefully this will work. Okay, so can you all see my PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Assuming it's yours, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, 5, Madam Mayor, members of council, this evening we are here to conduct a public hearing on a request by the owner of the property at 316 South 10th Street to allow an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, as part of a special use review application. Okay, what's going on here? Okay. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Vine Street and South 10th Street. The dominant feature on the property is a single-family residence originally constructed 145 years ago. The property is zoned R1, low-density residential, and is bordered on three sides, north, east, and south, by industrial zoning, and to the west by a combination of commercial, R1 residential, and industrial. Notwithstanding the vast industrial zoning around this property, much of the neighboring properties contain single-family residences as legal non-conforming uses. There are several structures which exist on site. In addition to the principal dwelling unit, there is a carriage house and garage. Second here, it's not loading. So there is, not loading the page. There is a carriage house and garage, an existing carport, and a root cellar. The property owner proposes to construct a new detached garage structure along the easterly boundary of the site. This concept includes a second floor for the detached garage, which will serve as an accessory dwelling unit. And it's not forwarding. Okay. Accessory dwelling units are second residences on sites where they are clearly subordinate to the principal residence. In Canyon City, ADUs are processed as special review uses so as to ensure the addition of another residence will not create conflicts with surrounding land uses. In terms of an evaluation of the special review use, there are 6 code-defined criteria pertaining to a variety of nuisance conditions, such as the size and location of the proposed SRU, traffic generation and on-site parking, buffering or screening of the use to minimize visual impact, and the potential for the use to generate dust, noise, fumes, or vibrations. Staff has evaluated this proposal against those 6 criteria and finds that the proposed ADU will be harmonious and in keeping with the residential nature of the property, and that it will not conflict with surrounding land uses. Finally, it should be noted that Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this matter, on this request on June 24th, 2020, and has joined staff in recommending that Council approve the special review use for an ADU at 316 South 10th Street. This can be done by the adoption of Ordinance 11, Series of 2020 on first reading, and by setting the second reading for July 20. And that would conclude the staff presentation. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions council may have. Also present to speak on behalf of this project is the property owner, Brenda Jackson.
Brenda Jackson, would you like to address council?
I really don't have much to add in addition to Mr. Mulready's report. I do want to say, as I said at Planning Commission, that it absolutely has been a pleasure working with the planning department, the city engineer, and the building official. They have been wonderful to work with. They've explained everything well, and they are really the utmost professionals. You should be proud of them.
Thank you for the compliment, Brenda Jackson. We appreciate that on behalf of the staff. Any questions from council?
So that I'm understanding the report right, we're not looking at any additional water taps or any sewer taps. Both of those items will be utilize the existing taps. Is that correct?
That is correct. Whenever an ADU is approved for a property that's got an existing residence on it, They are not given the option to purchase a second water tap. Their lines must be extended from the existing residence.
Any other questions from council? Then I'd like to close the public hearing and ask for a motion. Councilmember Meisner.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move that we approve ordinance number 11, series of 2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion?
That's
I'll
on
call
first
for a vote.
reading? Is that on first reading?
On first reading.
Okay. Throw first reading in there, please.
On first reading.
Thank you.
Still second.
Call for a vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
I'm going to now like to do an introduction and first reading of Ordinance 12, Series of 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City, rezoning certain real property within the city of Canyon City, Colorado, 501 and 503 Griffin Avenue. I would like to open the public hearing. And will that report also be given by Patrick Mulready?
It will be.
Okay, I'll turn the time over to you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, and members of council. Our second public hearing involves a request by the ownership group of the property located at 501 and 503 Griffin Avenue to rezone the property from R1 low-density residential to R3 high-density residential. The subject property is located at the northeast corner of Griffin Avenue and South 5th Street. It retains an R1 low-density residential zone district designation and has existing structures upon it. It is the historic use of those structures and where they are placed on site which has brought this matter to hearing as a rezoning request this evening. The three structures on site include a church, a rectory residence, and a detached garage. As constructed, the church and the rectory are built too close to each other to meet R1 side yard setbacks should the property owner decide to plat them into separate lots. Under Canyon City's municipal code, an applicant cannot subdivide property in such a way that it creates a nonconformity. The property is currently for sale, but the property owner is finding the only potential buyers for the site are ones who seek to convert the church building into multiple residential units. And the only way to do this in such a manner as to not cause a nonconformity with the municipal code would be to zone the property to R3 high-density residential. A look at the existing zoning in this area reveals that much of the subject property shares an R1 zoning with the lots north of Griffin Avenue. There's also a large number of units zoned R2 in this neighborhood and at least one with an R3 zoning designation. Rezoning requests are evaluated against three criteria in the municipal code. Staff finds that two of these criteria, specifically the land to be rezoned was zoned in error and as presently zoned is inconsistent with the policies and goals of the comprehensive plan, and two, the area for which the rezoning request is requested has changed or is changing to such a degree that it is in the public interest to encourage redevelopment. There are four factors which inform staff's evaluation: the location of the church and the rectory relative to the surrounding land uses, the inefficiency of the site layout, which precludes any other use under the R1 zoning concept for a church, the establishment of this church prior to the adoption of modern zoning, and the goal of maintaining the residential character of this neighborhood. Staff is also mindful that modern churches tend to require more land for both building mass and parking than this site can accommodate, and modern churches also tend to occupy a transitional role between residential neighborhoods and commercial activity. I would cite the two churches located on Franklin Avenue between the existing neighborhood to the north and the intensity of the commercial activity on the city market lot as an example of this. It should be noted that Planning Commission conducted a public hearing on this request on June 24th, 2020. Following that hearing, Planning Commission joined in staff's recommendation to council to approve the rezoning request for 501 and 503 Griffin Avenue from R1 low-density residential to R3 high-density residential. This can be accomplished with the adoption of ordinance number 12, series of 2020, on first reading, and set the second reading for July 20th, 2020. That would conclude the staff presentation. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Present to speak on behalf of this project is Mr. Dan Slater, who is representing the property owners.
Dan Slater, would you like to address council?
I don't think as with Ms. Jackson, I don't know that I have much more to add to what Mr. Mulready has presented. I would also echo Ms. Jackson's comments about working with city staff. It has been they've been very helpful in terms of helping us get this project through and answering questions that we've had as we've gone through this project. But I'm here to answer any questions that any council members may have with respect to what we're trying to do here.
Thank you. Councilmember Meisner.
Assuming we're moving to higher residential density, are there any requirements or limitations relative to some mandatory off-street parking? Looks like there's area in the back of that building, but there's really not much room in front of the building on that Griffin Avenue to accommodate
There
multiple
would be
residents.
parking requirements, and those parking requirements would be based upon the quantity of bedrooms in each of the residential units that are going to be built. So we don't have an answer for that yet.
Hypothetically, would that parking requirement be off-street?
It would have to be off-street, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Dan, how many units are you anticipating being in the church?
Realistically, I think it's safe to say the church could be divided into 2 units. And when you add the rectory, that would make 3 total units. I don't know whether you could realistically divide the church into 3 units. I think that 2 is probably the safest to assume. And that's what our application is based on.
Okay, well, we absolutely need multifamily units, that's for certain. Any other questions or comments from council? Then I'd like to close this public hearing and ask for a roll call vote, please. Or a motion and a second, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 12, series of 2020, rezoning certain real property within the city of Canyon City, Colorado, on first reading.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Council members Smith and Jaquez, did you have some discussion or questions?
Make a motion, but he did on the
Okay, sorry. All right, then I'll ask for a roll call.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you and congratulations. We're on to item number 10, and this is second reading and adoption of Ordinance 10, Series of 2020, entitled An Ordinance of the City of Canyon City Appropriating Additional Sums of Money for the City's 2019 Budget. Tammy Nordyke, it looks, will she be giving the report?
Actually, we don't have anything new to report. It is second reading. We have received no public comments regarding this ordinance.
Any questions or comments from council? Then I will call for the vote, please. Call for a motion. Councilmember Smith.
Madam Mayor and Council, I move to approve on second reading, number 10, series of 2020.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second, and I will now call for the vote.
Councilmember Dennehy?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Reed?
Aye.
Councilmember B. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick?
Aye.
Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. And this meeting is adjourned.